Hey guys, in today's video, I'm pretty much going to be going over Apple's lineup of products, mainly the iPhone, MacBook, and iPad, and we'll be going over the different tiers of items that they have, because depending on what you're looking for and what you're planning to do with these products, there will be a different item that is the best for you in your use case scenario. And so we'll just be going over them and who should buy which items. And so we're gonna first start off with, I personally think, the most important category, which is gonna be the iPhone. It is usually people's first entry level into the Apple ecosystem, and there's no better way to do that than with the iPhone 17e. And so currently, the iPhone 17e is the cheapest iPhone that Apple sells. It is selling right now at $599. We'll be going over some pros, cons, and a little conclusion for each product. And so we'll start with the iPhone 17e. So with the iPhone 17e, you pretty much have a very clear set of pros. It's the cheapest. Like we said, it's at $599. For an entry-level iPhone, it still gives you the Apple ecosystem, which will include iMessage. It'll have AirDrop. And so kind of the essential things that you would consider the Apple ecosystem gives you, you'll get at this price. The next thing is there are a couple clear cons, and it's gonna be the lowest build quality when it comes to the iPhones. They did have to make some adjustments to come down to this price point, but pretty much, you know, it's still Apple, it's still iPhone, but compared to the regular 17 as well as the, I guess you can consider flagships with the Pros, you are going to feel a little bit of a build quality difference when it comes to the iPhone 17e. Another thing that I would consider a big con, and this overlaps with some of the other items as well, but it has a 60 Hz refresh rate. And if you look at Android and the other phones that the market offers, not a lot of phones above the price point of 500 have 60 Hz phones anymore, screens anymore. That's kind of tech from the past, and I think Apple's the only company that's been able to kind of get away with this. And so that is definitely one of the biggest cons that I would see with that. And also, I have heard, and if you look at other YouTube videos, it will tell you that there is a sacrifice in battery performance as well, because they're pretty much making the phone smaller and also kind of not cheaping out, but not using the biggest batteries for one of their entry-level items. And so in terms of conclusions, I would say this phone is for people who just want the cheapest way to get into the iPhone ecosystem. Like I said, for iMessage, you know, this will unlock Game Pigeon that comes with iMessage, AirDrop. And so if you want to do this but don't really care, you know, maybe for grandparents or people who aren't super tech savvy and they just want to get an iPhone, I would say this is probably a good fit for you. It's still going to be adequate enough for the iPhone brand or for the Apple brand. Next, we'll go over to the regular iPhone 17. The iPhone 17, honestly, this year really impressed a lot of people, and I think it starts with the display. And so this year they gave it the 120 Hertz ProMotion display, and so it gives it that high refresh rate. And especially with something that you're touching and you're using on a day-to-day basis, the difference between 60 Hertz and 120 Hertz is very noticeable. I would say it's more important in the iPhone and the iPad than the MacBook, because it has to do with touch sensitivity as well as interacting it up close and for so long, prolonged periods of times. And so that definitely probably moved a bunch of people over from the Pro and Pro Max crowd to take over into this iPhone 17 category. The next is that this is going to pretty much give you that signature Apple build quality. They are really good at making iPhones. The last problem they had was probably with the iPhone 6, where they had that bend gate, but ever since then I think they've been on it. They've been testing their products very well. And so if you want, you know, signature Apple, sleek design, thin phone, I would say this is a really good example of that. Also, it comes in at 6.3 inches, which is, I would say, the perfect size to hold for most people. Unless you have big hands, you know, the Pro and Pro Max may, and we'll talk about it later, but maybe a little bit big for one-hand usage. And so with the 6.3 inch, this is cross display. Remember, it's not vertical or landscape. It's mainly diagonally 6.3 inches, and so it'll feel a little bit smaller when you're holding it and you're using the top and bottom of the phone. In terms of cons, there is not a lot. The main thing that I would consider is that for phones in this tier category, Apple is still expensive. You're definitely paying for the Apple tax, and there's phones that have technically quote unquote the same capabilities that are selling for much less in the Android ecosystem world. I think Apple gets away with it because they are Apple and they pretty much dominate this space. But in terms of just specifications, you could probably get a phone with the high refresh rate as well as the same battery life for cheaper if you do go the Android route. But we are currently talking about iPhones, and so I would say that's probably the only downside of this, is that you will be paying the Apple tax for this. In terms of conclusion, I would say because of how well they made the iPhone, especially with the ProMotion display, this year, and if you're looking to upgrade this year, 99% of people are going to be more than happy with the iPhone 17. I would even urge more people to go for this if the budget allows, because I think the upgrades versus the 17e that we talked about are definitely noticeable. And we'll talk about it later, but they're basically competing with the Pro and Pro Maxes when it comes to capabilities and things that they put into this phone this year. Next, we have a new phone this year called the iPhone Air. And so I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Apple's been pretty much bragging about how thin it is and all of those nice design features. That's going to be our first pro, is that it's very thin and it's very nice to hold. And personally, this was one of the reasons why I almost switched to the iPhone Air. I'm a person that doesn't like to use cases, and mainly because I like the feel that the iPhone gives you in hand, and the iPhone Air just pretty much accentuates that. It's a very light phone. I think it's the lightest phone that Apple's made ever, and it just feels insanely nice in the hand. Another pro is that it does give you it's 6.5 inches versus the 6.3 that we talked about with the 17, and so it does give you a little bit of a increased screen real estate versus the regular 17. It's not too big where it's like hitting into the Pro Max territory, but it is bigger, and so if you're looking for a slightly bigger phone, this is a phone that will give you that. In terms of the cons, they're very clear about it, and I think a lot of Apple/technology YouTubers went over it. But the battery life seems to, take a hit, especially because that phone did get thinner. So it has a smaller battery, which means it's not going to last as long as a phone in the same price category with the bigger battery. And also, if you look at the back, it has one camera versus the 3 that you get on the Pro models. And what this does is they basically took away the telephoto zoom, and so it does limit your ability to zoom in pictures. And depending on who you are, if you're doing a lot of photography with your phone, this is something to consider. But personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The zoom's still going to be good. It's just not into that pro category or pro level of high zoom that you get. Also, another big con that does kind of target this is that it starts at $999 for the base configuration. That's a lot of money, especially if you compare it to other phones that have better batteries. You get a better assortment of cameras. This, again, you're paying the Apple tax, but one of the biggest complaints of the iPhone Air when it came out was that it's very expensive, pretty much $1,000. I would say this is for a very small minority of people. It's for people who really just, you're making a decision based on the design. This is more of a heart decision, not a brain one, because you know that you're sacrificing battery life, you're sacrificing the camera quality, but camera availability. But if for people who hold this in their hand and they're like, I need to have this, which I almost was a part of that group, I think it's okay to skip. And so that's kind of the conclusion for the iPhone Air. In terms of the 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max this year, so I have the 16 Pro Max, but I did not upgrade, and usually I do, but it's because compared to the previous years, you're not getting anything crazy. You are getting a little design change. They have the Apple plateau in the back. One of the pros is that it is the flagship phone, so you're pretty much getting the best that Apple has to offer when it comes to iPhone technology, camera, display, battery life, performance, and also, aura. If you want to just be known for having the newest iPhone, the best iPhone, I guess you do win some points in that. One of the cons, and the biggest con, is the price. The regular 17 Pro starts at $1099 and the Pro Max starts at $1199. You're getting into that early $1,000 territory where I think only Samsung, Apple can kind of live, because that is an extraordinary amount of money for an iPhone. So in terms of conclusion for the Pro and Pro Max category, I would say the iPhone 17 gives you 90% of the experience that the Pro and Pro Max gives you this year. The only difference is going to be that if you want the best of the best and that upgraded telephoto zoom lens, then I would say go for it. But it does really it does make you ask yourself, am I getting the most bang for my buck when it comes to the iPhone and getting the Pro and Pro Max? So we're going to do a little iPhone conclusion, and so we went over the 17e, the regular 17, and the Pro and Pro Max, and the conclusion that I can make for this category, if you summed it up all together, is that if you want the cheapest iPhone, don't really care about the itty-bitty stuff when it comes to technology, get the 17e. 90% of people, 95 I would even say, are going to be more than happy with the regular 17. It gives you an amazing display, high refresh rate, amazing camera, amazing battery life. It's going to be more than enough for you, and it gives you everything that Apple has to offer. It has the ProMotion display, which is the biggest upgrade from the last year of iPhones. If you have a little bit more in your budget and you want the latest and greatest, also the best that Apple has to offer, you can opt for the 17 Pro and the 17 Pro Max. They do give you a couple more color options if that's important to you, but I think for most people, I would say the 17 for this year punches way above its weight, and you should just kind of stick with that unless you're really eking for something thinner with the iPhone Air, or just, you know, have money to spend in the Pro and Pro Max. Next category, we're going to go over to iPads. And so when it comes to iPads, it breaks down as the base model. There's an iPad mini, and there's an iPad Air, and an iPad Pro. And the Pro has two different sizes, but we'll go over that. I think it's not big enough for us to kind of include in two different categories, but let's start with the base iPad. And so it starts at $349, which compared to the other iPads, if you look at the prices, the mini goes for $499, the Air is for $599, and the Pros go for $999 and $1299. And so compared to those, you are getting a lot of iPad for a lot cheaper of a price. Also, it comes in a 11-inch diagonal display, and so that's pretty big, I would say, for an iPad in terms of content consumption. YouTube, if you're doing any of these, 11 inches is going to be plenty to watch. In terms of cons, again, kind of similar to the 17e, because they're going for a budget option, they are going to cut costs when it comes to build quality. The display is a little bit less, advanced as the ones before. The main difference is that I don't know the specific terminology for this, but there seems to be a slight gap between the touch sensors as well as the plastic display on top. And so I know compared to the other iPads on this list, the latency as well as kind of like, you can say it as touch quality feel, is gonna fall compared to the other ones. But again, it's $349, it's almost half the price of the next one up. And so if you're looking for just something to, and that'll come to my conclusion, but if you're looking for something just to maybe watch movies on, watch YouTubes, browse the internet, and you just want something bigger than your phone, I would say you'll be more than happy with this option. The next is going to be the Mini, and they're targeting a very specific group of people with this iPad. It's better performance than the base that we talked about. The build quality is going to be good, and the main difference, hence the name Mini, is that it's compact and it's more portable. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily pocketable, because I don't know if a lot of pants have size pockets that fit 11-inch diagonally, but it is smaller than the other iPads that take up a lot of space. You pretty much need laptop amount of space for the other iPads mentioned here. But the Mini is going to give you a compact body, and one of the cons is that it does not have a ProMotion display, which means it has that 60 Hertz that we talked about, which I'm not a big fan of. I think once you go 120 Hertz, it's very hard, and it feels very sluggish and laggy when you go back to 60 Hertz, and so that's something we got to talk about as well. And also, it is the Mini, and so it'll give you a little bit more screen real estate than the iPhone, but if you're looking for a tablet experience, it is a little bit on the smaller side, and some people might not like that, but this is a very niche product that some people really like, and for the most part, the majority of people will kind of skip this and go to the next item. Next on the category, we have the iPad Air, and this is actually the one that I recommend for most people. My brother got the iPad Air. Another friend of mine who was looking for something for college also bought this under my recommendation, and I think it really does give you a lot of value for the price. It is currently selling, we talked about, at $599, which is expensive, but again, Apple tax plus. You know, there's two configurations. You can go with the 11-inch and also the 12.9-inch. Again, just like the Pros, but without paying an extra exorbitant amount of money. It's also thin, hence the name Air. It's going to be a thinner, it's going to give you a thinner item that you can put into your backpack or a sling bag or something like that, and it won't really weigh you down when it comes to moving from one place to the other. Also, starting from this category and this size, they're very usable with the Apple Pencil. And I think most college students, if you're in college and you want to use an Apple Pencil with it, again, my brother, who's in college right now, is using it with the Apple Pencil, and I think he's more than happy. This is where I would say this is kind of like the main use case of the iPad when it comes to note-taking and stuff like that. And one of the cons is that it is pretty expensive. When you compare it to other tablets in this category, you are paying that Apple tax like we talked about. And also there is no ProMotion display, which again, I would say if they did give the iPad Air ProMotion display, it probably would outcompete with the iPad Pros. But you know, when it comes to note-taking, like I said, and anything that you're touching in particular, the ProMotion and the refresh rate really makes a difference because you're interacting with it in such a sensitive way. And so in conclusion, if you want something with good Apple quality, it's not the best of the best, but it will be, I think, overkill for even most people. Again, it's going to be perfect for YouTube, Netflix, web surfing, social media, all of that stuff. But if you do want something better and you have a little bit of cash to spend, the next category is going to be the iPad Pro 11-inch and 12.9-inch. And so the main pros about this category is that it has the ProMotion display, which gives you 120 Hertz. I believe it's a OLED display, and so it's, you know, very good when it comes to colors. The iPad Pros also get the best chips, and so this is also very niche, but if you're editing or doing any sort of processing with the iPads, then this is going to be the one to go to. It'll definitely cut your time in half when it comes to, I guess, video processing or image configurations as well. Next, this is probably the one that I have. I have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Very, very expensive at $12.99 with the bigger one and $9.99 for the smaller one, but you do kind of get what you pay for, and it gives you the best experience with the Apple Pencil. The ProMotion definitely goes hand in hand with the Apple Pencil, and when you're writing notes, it's going to be the best experience that iPad can give you. And when it comes to a conclusion for this, it meshes with the overall iPad conclusion as well, but I think for most people, I would either go with the base iPad. If you're looking just to do, again, video surfing, web surfing, anything like that, just go with the base. If you want something a little bit higher in build quality, you're going to be using it a lot, go with the iPad Air. If you want something bigger than your phone, but not as big as the two previous iPads that we talked about, go with the Mini. I think the Mini targets the smallest group of people, especially if you're going bigger, you know, might as well get that full 11 or 12 inches. Oh, okay, pause. 11 or 12 inches that the other iPads give you, but the Mini is gonna hit the heartstrings of a certain amount of people, and I think they'll know that they want the Mini. The only people that I would consider recommending the Pro and Pro Maxes is that if you're doing work on the iPad, which I don't know who does, but let's say you have the keyboard and you're doing work on it and this is going to be your main dedicated work setup, then might as well pitch in a couple $100 more and get the best of the best. I think if you are using it every day for work, then the ProMotion and just the overall you know, category is going to help you a lot. But you know, unless you just have money to spend, I wouldn't recommend the Pro and Pro Max. Go with the base or the Air. Next, so this is where it gets interesting because Apple has been shifting their, not focus, but broadening out the target audience for the MacBooks. The newest edition is going to be the Neo. So the MacBook Neo is the newest integration of MacBook. It comes in at $599 and they introduced it this year. The biggest pros are going to be that it's the cheapest MacBook. So if you're looking for an entry-level laptop, this does actually compete with other laptops outside of Apple, and I think it's a very good price category to start with for Apple. It's also light and very practical for browsing internet, and so I think this was made to be a direct competitor with the Chromebooks. Anything where you're not downloading anything in particular or running a bunch of software, this is going to beat out a lot of those other tablets or laptops that do the same thing. Of course, when it comes to, again, the budget options for Apple, you're going to be working with, as a con, a cheaper build quality and also a weaker processor. If you don't know, the MacBook Neo has an iPhone chip in there. I think it's the 13 something, but it's still very, very good. Apple Silicon is one of the best categories to work with, but pretty much compared to the Apple Silicon when it comes to the M chips, you are getting a step down in strength, but I think, and this brings us to our conclusion, this is good enough for 90% of people who use their laptop for Google, YouTube, emails. You know, if it's just for like browsing or the internet, this is going to be more than happy. You're going to be more than happy with this. I would strongly recommend this. I think Apple hit it out of the park with this one. Really just, you know, it's what people have been asking for. Now, a step up, if you want a little bit better build quality and battery life, you do have the MacBook Air, and the main pros are going to be, again, the build quality. You're able to get this one in two configuration sizes, in a 13-inch and also a 15-inch. You are paying a little bit more for the 15-inch. Let's see, what does it come out to? It'll be $1099 for the base MacBook Air, and then $1299 for the MacBook Air 15-inch. The biggest cons, well, given it is the Air, so everybody knows it's thinner than the Pros, I would say. It's thinner than, it used to be thinner than the base MacBook, but I don't think it's thinner than, or thinner and lighter than the Neo, but it is very thin compared to the productivity and power that you get. It is thin and easy to carry. Cons, no fans. And so the biggest differentiators between this and the Pro models are going to be that this one doesn't have the fans. They have been able to make it thinner and lighter because of the lack of fans, but this will affect performance when it comes to long-term usage. And also, if you're looking to do browsing, you know, I don't think this, especially at the price that it is at, outcompete the MacBook Neo. I think this is just, at this point, a better version of the Neo, and other YouTubers have been talking about it as well. But it seems like a lot of people who would have bought the MacBook Air because that was the cheapest one you could get are going to be flocking to the Neo because it's better than what you could get in terms of power and power performance than the other ones that they offer. When it comes to conclusions, this laptop shares a lot of DNA with the Neo. And so if you are looking for a Neo, everything that the Neo offers, but a little bit of a better build quality and battery, that would be the only reason why I would push you to the Air. Next, in this category, we have the MacBook Pros. And this brings us down to the 14 and 16 inch. The main difference is going to be the processors in these computers. They're pretty much the best processors you can go with. I believe right now is the M5 chip. You can go with the M5 Pro, M5 Max, M5 Ultra later down the line. Those are going to be the best if you are using these for work. It'll definitely be the, you know, it's a portable desktop basically when it comes to power performance. The screens are bigger than the base MacBook Airs. You have 14 inches and 16 inches. That does make a difference, as I said, if you are working with this on a day-to-day basis. This right here is the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 chip though, and so I got it a little while ago, but I'm more than happy with it. I'm just a sucker for the ProMotion display, and so I have been using this for the last 5 years, but it's been overkill for 99% of what I do as well, and so that's kind of what you have to do when it comes to that. One of the cons, and this is something I felt as well, but it's very, very expensive. It's this one configuration was $1,699, so $1,700. If you want to go with the 16-inch, it jumps up $1,000 to $2,699 starting. That's a lot of money. Again, when it comes to you know, conclusion for this one, unless you have the money and unless you're doing work on it, which I do video editing, I make music on this, and I do use it for photography and videography as well. unless you're doing that and you're going to be using it on a day-to-day basis, I would not push you to the Pro and Pro Max. I would actually push you to the lower tier items, because you're going to be getting way more bang for the buck for especially the things that you are doing on a day-to-day basis. There's an honorable mention that I want to add here. In the computer category for Apple, they do have the iMac. And so I'll put a picture up, but basically this is a desktop version with the Apple Silicon. It comes in 24 inches diagonally for the display. The pros here is that it's an all-in-one computer. They usually give you a keyboard and mouse, and so you buy that. It's not portable, but you pretty much just set it up. It's an all-in-one display with the processor inside the display as well. And so if you are, if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you're looking for a desktop, but you don't want to necessarily move to Windows and you want to keep everything in the same family, it comes in at, what is it coming at? $12.99. So in terms of that, I think it's a pretty good, offering from Apple. I know it's not that popular, but it's a decent price for a monitor and good processor setup. It's also very thin and light. It looks modern. It's definitely Apple, signature. But one of the biggest cons for me is that 24 inches, usually if you are working on it on a day-to-day basis, is a little bit small. I would usually recommend 27 inches. That's a really good display for working. When it comes to MacBook, the conclusion for this one is pretty simple. If your main use cases fall under these categories, YouTube, Netflix, emails, web surfing, going to school, then get the Neo. This year, it's an amazing offering. You can go watch, hundreds of videos about this, but it's really good this year for those use cases. If you want something a little bit nicer, a little bit bigger battery life so that it lasts a little longer, go with the Air. If you're going to be using it for work, if you're doing professional work on it, then you can go with the Pro and Pro Maxes. But I would say, go with that. Go with the MacBook Neo, and you'll be happy. And so I'm gonna slowly wrap up this video. If you made it this long, thank you for watching. I've been making a lot of videos recently about technology and Apple products. It's been very fun. I'm gonna be coming up with more. Also, one honorable mention is that the AirPod Pros, those things are a lifesaver. They're I think they changed my life. I'm being dramatic, but I'll make a separate video about those, but I think those are probably the things that I use more than this or my phone, basically. So yeah, but if you had some fun with this video, I hope it was a little bit helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe. Definitely more videos coming later, but other than that, have a great day, you guys.